All right, perfect. My name again is Brad Woodberg. I'm Senior Director of Product Management at Vectra AI. I'm actually in charge of all the AI at Vectra and the NDR product. I've been here for 3 years. We're leveraging SuriCata now in the product alongside our AI, and for 6 years I was running the emerging threats team at Proofpoint as a product manager. So yeah, lots of love for SuriCata. And I want to present a different type of topic quickly around how Copilot is kind of changing some things in the threat landscape. We've been doing some research on it, and it's super interesting, and it actually has implications on SuriCata. So there's really 3 things that I want you to take away from this. I want to talk about why the impetus, the drivers behind Copilot, how it's changing, some of the threat landscape and the attacks we're seeing, and then lastly, what you need to know as folks operating SuriCata. So first off, why is Copilot a game changer? Microsoft has a massive, customer network. Obviously, like most organizations that we deal with, leverage Microsoft in one form or another. This is something that leadership in a lot of the organizations are hearing from their peers. They're hearing from some of the big consultants out there that, hey, Copilot and Gen AI in general is a game changer. And so what that's doing is that's causing a lot of top-down pressure, from leadership to say, hey, we're hearing about all the amazing benefits of AI, and we don't want to be left behind. We don't want to be behind our competition. We need to start leveraging this for productivity reasons. So, most technology kind of is driven from the bottom up, right? It's you guys saying, hey, we need SuriCata. It's really going to help us. This one is coming more from the top down, where leadership is saying, stop what we're doing. Let's get Gen AI in here, and specifically Copilot. And this isn't limited to just Copilot, but Copilot is definitely the biggest thing that we're seeing in almost every single customer that I talk to. I just ask the question, and pretty much all of them either are already leveraging it, or have users in trial mode, or are gonna start. I've never seen anything like this in the 20 years that I've been around. And so what's important for you guys to know, and you'll see kind of how this plays into the broader SuriCata piece, is that what Copilot does, is it adds, just add a click, a chat GPT-like functionality to your entire Microsoft suite, to the different apps for users. It's nothing more than flipping a switch. So there's not really anything major that you have to deploy. You just have to say, yes, here's who gets access to it. And then out of the box, it'll index basically all of all of your emails, your Teams chats, all the Office documents, SharePoint. You can even use it to index other external data sources like Atlassian. Maybe you have Jira tickets or Confluence. There's all sorts of plugins, and now once you've done that, Copilot has access to all this information, and it's just a question away. And like many things, both Microsoft, but even just in general, the security here is really actually quite far behind. They're moving at a pace where it's like, get the functionality out first, and we'll ask questions later and try to figure it out. So that puts anyone who's in, for anyone who's kind of, works in a SOC, it puts you at a challenging position, because again, your leadership is saying, hey, we need this, let's deploy it. And as you'll see, there's some risks. So before I get into specific risks, just a word about how this works. I borrowed this from Microsoft. Basically, as a user, you have all these different ways that you can ask a question when whether it's through the web interface or through the different apps. Basically what happens is it does some pre-processing first, just to make sure, it's an attempt at making sure that the questions that get asked are fit kind of the, what is legitimate and acceptable. Then the question gets asked to the LLM is going to return results, and then they put that through a graph database to try to make sure that, hey, this is a question that the user has access to, has the right permissions to ask this question, and that it's not leaking information. Of course, none of that is perfect, but there's actually some more significant problems than probably the first thing that you're thinking is like, oh, well, you can ask it a question that it shouldn't answer. That happens, we've obviously seen a lot of that, but it's actually even more profound. So how can an attacker use Copilot? Well, once they've made it in, all it takes is, an MFA attack or something on the identity side where they're able to, log in as a user. If Copilot has been enabled for that user, this makes it's really a treasure trove, probably the biggest power tool I can think of for attackers when it comes particularly to reconnaissance, because you can ask Copilot's questions. Remember the data that it has access to, all your emails, all your chats, all your documents, like not just like it reads the documents, right? It has access to file servers and SharePoint and even external sources. So you can ask it, questions like what's my network architecture, how do users connect, what products do we use for backups and where are those backups stored. You can even ask it other types of questions that can be used for targeting via email. Maybe you want to, an attacker wants to do some lateral phishing, and it's going to come now from an internal source. So really, Copilot is going to help you with that recon phase, and that's really, really significant because the recon phase is traditionally something that we're actually, the attacker, we basically have the home field advantage, right? The attacker has the home field advantage every time that they're trying to break in, because they only need to be right once and then they're in. But once they're in, the tables get turned and they need to be right every time, otherwise you're going to pick them up. So I'm going to double click on that. The other thing is jailbreak. That's a little bit less interesting here, but it's a significant concern in and of itself. We know that these things are possible. It's kind of an arms race there. But as they fix those those individual jailbreaks, the reality is that this this capability, there's nothing, there's not like a bug there so much that they can fix. You're able to ask it questions that it knows the answer to, and it's hard to distinguish that from normal things. So Microsoft does include detections, but again, as I'm sure probably a lot of you have tried, you can trick LLMs to be able to share more information than was intended. And one other thing, and I think it was mentioned in one of the earlier talks, but when you think about it, so this is running the question in the context of the user, but we know that users are often over-provisioned with permissions. I mean, I think everyone in this room, you can think about, okay, well, I have access to file shares and other things that I never use. Well, now, even if you never use it, you have the access. Well, Copilot knows all that information. An attacker just simply has to ask the question, and now it has the answer. So I just want to, almost close my last slide here, but just to talk about, I pulled up one of the latest ransomware operations from DFIR report. DFIR report is a really great resource if you're not familiar with it. But this is what the network portion of an attack looks like. Now, when it comes to recon, essentially, when you're an attacker, right, you get in and you have to figure out where you are, where all the other resources are, and this is typically a pretty haphazard process for an attacker. They're going to kind of fumble around, they're going to be doing port scans, they're going to be discovery, they're going to be doing other things that's typically going to be, even when they try not to be noisy, it can definitely set off tripwires. And also, it's really important because the recon phase is early in an attack. So if you can detect the attacker, either on the initial impact or when they go to, start poking around, then you can prevent, worse things from happening in the impact phase. So again, this is important, but now an attacker doesn't have to do all those steps, because a lot of this is just located simply in, it's just a Copilot query away. And so I think that that's something that we really need to be aware of, that yeah, the recon phase is important to be able to detect, but it's not always going to be there. And also one other thing, you know, we've gotten a lot of value out of SuriCon specifically for recon, because a lot of the stuff that you might do in the recon phase isn't necessarily impacted by encryption. You think about doing like the scanning and a lot of the application transactions, that can be done regardless of what the protocol is. And then there are some specific ones in Active Directory, but again, you know, like RPC, Kerberos, things like that are still in enough clear text where Suricata can pick that up. So it's just important to kind of, you know, understand that this may be shifting in the future. But the really good news is that a majority of the other stages are still visible. So, you know, obviously the command and control itself, you know, lateral movement, you know, when an attacker, you know, goes to move to a higher privilege, you know, if they go to do exfiltration, there's lots of signatures on that, and ransomware, you know, in this specific example, which you can go and check out. I'll make sure Kelly gets the slides to put up. But yeah, I really, we've actually built a bunch of detections on, you know, in our identity solution, and we're actually seeing Copilot already being abused. So that's the other thing, that like this isn't something that is just theoretical. Like we're already seeing it abused, and it's primarily being abused for some sort of reconnaissance purpose. I think we've mainly seen it on like the email side, but there's no reason why, you know, why this can't happen if it's not already happening. So this is a lightning talk, so it's like 10 minutes, and I do have a flight to catch. But if you're interested in chatting about any of this, we love talking about it. Here's my info, and we'll again put up the slides. And yeah, just hopefully this gets you thinking, you know, about all the possibilities. And yeah, hope you enjoy. Thanks, everyone.